How's that? There we go. The wrong mic button. That can make a difference, can't it? Thank you for that, by the way. So what I was saying is this is grilled cheese. My name is Robert. Hello. Welcome to another Cook Along Live. As you can tell, sometimes things don't go right on a live stream. The number one mistake that people make when they're making grilled cheese is they usually have the pan turned up too hot. So they actually end up toasting the bread before the cheese is melted, and that can lead to kind of a not so good experience to people eating the grilled cheese. So the first thing I want us to do is get the pan on, medium-low, just kind of get it going. We do want it to warm up a bit, but we don't want it to get super hot. So if you notice that while you're getting stuff ready, this is starting to smoke, or you're putting your hand over it and it's feeling really warm, really radiant, turn it off, turn it down, and then that'll be good for you. So let's get started. I also said I like to use a nice rustic loaf, any kind of a loaf. I don't like getting pre-sliced bread because they usually slice it really thin. It's usually like 1/4 of an inch or so. I like to have at least a 3/4 inch slice of bread just to give it a little bit more robustness, a little bit more thickness. I don't like skinny bread. It just doesn't work for me. I've got 4 different kinds of cheese here, and I've got some prosciutto. So we're going to be making a little bit of an upscale grilled cheese, but you can just do regular American singles if you want. I don't recommend it, but you can. I've already sliced my bread. Let me just make sure that they're all the way sliced through. Like I said, I like slices that are about 1/2 inch, 3/4 of an inch. Those 1/4 inch slices that you get from the store, not that awesome. Yes, Stu, I do like it thick. So I like to just make sure that I remember which side is actually the middle. So let me switch this to that. And then I always make sure that I have the middle, like I know what the middle is. So I'm going to turn the middle down and have the outsides facing up. We're actually going to be using mayonnaise on my grilled cheese sandwich. You can use butter. I would not recommend using margarine, but you can if you want. Mayonnaise actually generally gives you a better toast on the outside. And you can really, really control it because it's already kind of gloopy and spreadable, whereas butter, you kind of have to leave it out and let it soften. And even then, you're not necessarily able to really put it on as thin as you want. So I like to put a really, really thin layer of mayo on the outside. And just trust me on this. If you've never tried this, give it a shot, and then let me know if you don't like it. I'm just going to go ahead and get it thinly spread. And then what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put my bread in already, and then start putting a couple of pieces of cheese on. I've got some Gruyere, I've got some pepper jack, I've got some Fontina, and I've got some regular cheddar. You can use whatever cheeses you want. Just make sure that they're kind of melty cheeses. Otherwise, they're not going to melt very well. And then I just like to try and place them so that they fill in the inside and don't overlap the edges too much. And what this is going to do is the bottom piece is going to start to brown. We have it on medium-low, so we're hopefully not going to burn it. And it's going to start warming the cheese up to melt. Just go there and there. Now we'll put a couple of pieces of cheddar in here as well. Now I'm going really light on the cheddar on the inside of the sandwich here. And the reason for that is I'm actually going to also put cheddar on the outside and toast it and make like an outside crouton. You don't have to do that if you don't like it. I had a friend who really, really didn't like it at all. And so I would not do it with her sandwiches, but I do enjoy it on mine. And then you also have an option here. You can either put the pancetta or parma ham or sopressata or whatever meat you're using as the final layer, or what I'm actually going to do is kind of sandwich it in between. And the reason being, if you just put it on the outside, it's actually going to make that piece of bread not stick to everything else. Whereas if you put it in the middle, the cheese will melt around it and kind of glue everything together. And you'll notice I put the end with the flap on, I folded it over on one side, and then I'm going to do it exactly the opposite for the other side here. And I guess I can turn it around so I get the fat flap on the other side as well. And so you got quite a bit of time if you've got this over low or medium-low heat. And always err on the side of being a little bit too reserved on the heat, because you can always turn it up. This is probably the only time during cooking I'll ever recommend that you not have the pan like ripping hot. And it's mostly because you want the cheese to melt before the bread. It's going to cook, it's going to brown, doesn't matter whether you start it cold and then warm it up, or whether you warm it up first and put it on. Usually meats and things like that, you won't get that nice crust on the outside unless it starts off super hot. The Maillard reaction is what they call that. That gives you that nice brown crust on the outside. Yep, no oil in the pan. The reason is because we're already adding fat to the bread. So since we're already putting fat on the outside of the bread, I'm also using a non-stick pan. But even if I wasn't, if I was using cast iron or something like that, the fact that you're putting fat directly on the outside of the bread, putting oil in the pan might actually just absorb the oil into the bread and make it a little bit more soggy. If that's the style you like, I'm not going to tell you not to do it. It's just not the way that I've done it. So there we go. We got our sandwich built. Now we're really just going to kind of wait and see what's going on the underside. And then once that starts to brown up, we'll flip it. So like I said, I've got some cheddar over here that I've grated as well. And once we've got the first side browned and we flip it, we're going to kind of put this on top and wait to flip it again. We'll let it kind of melt a little bit so that it at least adheres to the outside of the bread, so when we flip it, it doesn't spatter all over the pan. And then the extra cheese, you can either munch on it if you want, or just go ahead and put it back in the package and refrigerate it again. Totally up to you. So you're from the UK. What part of the UK? Hey, John, what's up, man? Yeah, Etienne, is there anything better than meat and cheese? I mean, come on. Oh, awesome. So yeah, this is a grilled cheese sandwich. Might definitely be an American thing. I don't think it is, though. It might be that we make it more often than other locales do. Let me see. I need my little flipper thing. That's the technical cooking term for it. It certainly is not spatula. And then really all I'm going to do is just kind of slide under, take a look. Not quite getting there, so I'm actually going to turn my heat up to medium and just kind of let things go. Yeah, let's have a conversation, guys. How's it going? How's your weekend? Those of you outside of the United States, we're celebrating Labor Day next weekend, so we've got a long weekend, holiday weekend. When is your Boxing Day? I think that's what you guys celebrate coming up next, if you're in the UK. Not sure if that's now or if that's after Thanksgiving. That might be after Thanksgiving in November. London, awesome. I got a friend who lives, actually, I don't know where he lives. Etienne, do you know where James lives? Anyway, he lives over in the UK as well. So I always wanted to go over and visit and just haven't had the opportunity to yet. Now, I don't know if you guys can see in the camera here, but I'm starting to see bubbles kind of forming around the outside where the mayonnaise is now getting onto the pan and starting to sizzle. And that's perfect. So I'm just going to keep it at a lower heat like that and let it just kind of brown itself. Now, another popular thing to do with grilled cheese sandwich, if you guys have never made one of these before or have never seen this done, is actually to heat up a bowl of tomato soup with this. It's pretty warm here in California, so I'm not going to do the soup thing. But on a cold winter day, when it's kind of muggy outside or overcast and a little bit misty, grilled cheese sandwich and a nice cup of soup is pretty awesome. Can't complain about that. Cool. Okay, so he's across the river from Edinburgh. That's awesome. Awesome. So you guys have your holiday this week. Ours is next week. And it's just the bank holiday? All right, cool. Good to know. Good to know. I like to see who's celebrating what. Just take another quick peek. Starting to get brown, but not quite there yet, which is perfect. This is the pace that you want. You really don't want it to start like overcooking on you without the cheese melting. And you might notice also in the camera overhead, the ham, the fat on the ham is starting to kind of melt and render out, which is exactly what you want. You want the inside of the sandwich to start getting some of the heat from the pan as well, which is going to have it's what's going to cause the cheese to melt. Oof, oof. How is it in Texas? We're having some luck with Corona and all of that. What part of Texas are you in? Because I've been to Dallas, I've been to Austin. I'm curious if you're near either one of those cities. But how was your Corona stuff? Because I know you guys kind of opened up a little bit before we did. Just curious. There we go. One thing I am going to serve with this, which is also kind of, I guess, traditional, is a dill pickle. If you want, I suppose you can use bread and butter, but dill are always my favorite. I'm just going to go ahead and get this guy prepped, grab one of the big ones, like so. Yeah, American accent. Sorry. Man, I wish I could go and visit the UK, Scotland, Ireland. I think that would be fantastic. I have not been myself, but soon. Once the pandemic's over and Americans are allowed to go into other countries because our government isn't full of airheads anymore. So I'm basically just going to kind of press down on this a little bit, and what that's going to do is make sure that all of the bread is in contact with the pan and make sure that it's going to be toasting nicely. It is starting to get brown on the other side, so I'm going to flip it here in a minute. But I just want to make sure that everything is getting an even amount of heat. Yeah, next weekend for the long weekend, I was planning on flying down to Southern California to visit some of my coworkers, colleagues that are down there. I think I'm going to pass on it though. The coronavirus stuff is a little bit crazy. Every year we have fires here in California, and this year it's actually pretty bad. So it's kind of smoky out and not ideal for aviation. So I think I'm gonna call it a bad weekend to fly and stay home. Plus Corona, and I don't know how it's doing down there or any of that. I do take it fairly seriously. I know I have guests on my show, but the show guests are also realtors like myself, and we basically hole ourselves inside unless we're specifically meeting somebody. And then when we're meeting somebody, we take very big precautions to make sure that we're keeping ourselves as safe as possible. So I feel like the risk is pretty low on that instance. But if I go down to SoCal, I'm going to have to stay in a hotel, and yeah, it's kind of worries me a little bit. Cool, so you can see that we've got our one side. It's nicely browned. Let's see. That light is kind of a little bit bright, but it is browned very well. Maybe I can do this and tip it up and show you. Got a nice brown on that bread. And the cheese is starting to melt, so we're gonna kind of keep it like that. I'm gonna take a little bit of my cheddar. Again, you don't have to do this if you don't want to, but this is gonna create a nice little crispy outside. We're gonna just kind of put our cheddar over the top. Just a very light layer. You don't need a ton of this. But you might want a ton. It's totally up to you. Again, it's your sandwich, so you do what you want. There we go. And this is specifically the reason that I'm using a non-stick pan. If I were using a cast iron pan, I would then have to add butter or oil or some kind of fat to the pan with just the cheese, because that's not gonna stay non-stick. Doesn't matter how slick it is, it's still probably gonna stick. That actually sounds really, really good. Toasted peanut butter and banana. My Nana, actually, so I'm Armenian. My grandma, my dad's mom, my Nana, she used to live with us when I was a little kid. And she used to take bananas and a little bit of honey and mash it up with graham crackers. We used to call it banana and cookie. And it was like the best thing in the world. And you know what? Now I don't really like bananas, but I love banana candy. I love the flavor. I just don't like the texture of a banana. And so I'll still make myself banana and cookie from time to time to get that little nostalgic hit, which I love it. So we've got our cheese here on the top. You'll notice that it is starting to melt a little bit. Let me switch back to here. And that's exactly what you want. You want it to kind of adhere to the bread a little bit. And then what we're going to do is we're going to let the other side brown and then flip it again, and then let this cheese turn into a crust and then flip it back over. And you can crust both sides if you want. Yeah, I might do that. Why not? I've come this far. I might as well keep going. But you'll notice that the cheese in the pan is also starting to melt and kind of turn into those little crouton pieces. I like to use cheddar. You can use Parmesan because you'll get almost like a Parmesan crouton, which everybody loves those, I think. But that's basically what you're turning the outside of the bread into. Again, you don't have to do that. It's just something that I think adds a little bit extra flavor and crunchy texture and cheese flavor to the sandwich. Hey, May, how's it going, man? Or woman? Or non-binary person? I don't recognize the username, but I'm doing well. How are you? Let me take a look underneath and see how our second side is coming. Browning, but not quite there yet. We're gonna let that go. A little bit longer. There we are. Awesome. Well, it's good to have you. I do these cook-alongs every Sunday at 4:30 Pacific Standard Time or Pacific Date Time, whatever time it is. And the reason that I chose Sunday, we actually used to do this on Fridays after work, my time. So it would be like 6 o'clock, 6:30 I think I did. And it was just too much. I'd finish work and then have to like move my computer into the kitchen, get all this camera stuff set up. It became a little bit too hectic. So I moved it to Sunday, figuring that, hey, the people who are able to swing in on a Sunday or a Monday morning, for those of you in the UK, would be able to watch it live. And then anybody else, you can just come and watch it whenever you need to, because I save all the videos. So if you are on Twitch, I have a YouTube channel, the same username, Cyrix. You can look me up on YouTube or by my full name, Robert Sogomonian. And I have a bunch of playlists for aviation stuff, food, and a couple of other things. And all of my previous cook-alongs are in there. So there's a lot of really cool stuff in there, including Pixar-style ratatouille, where you shave it down really, really thin and then layer it into a really cool little, mound in the center. And some sushi. I actually did sushi a couple weeks ago from scratch, which I love sushi. So this is just meant to be fun. This is not. This is basically something I started when the pandemic did, to keep family, friends, and local people entertained, and hopefully trying something new. Because a lot of the stuff that I cook might take a little time, but it's all pretty easy. Like, I don't do anything that's super crazy, at least not during the cook-along lives. Hey, Mom, how's it going? So now we're just waiting on the second side of the bread to toast, and then once that's ready, we'll flip it over. It is starting to get brown, but I'm just gonna let it sit for a little bit longer here and continue to toast. Next weekend, we're gonna be doing chicken cordon bleu. My brother-in-law has requested that a couple of times. So I'm going to do that. And then I know there's a lot of controversy, I guess I can say, around fried rice. So I'm thinking maybe in 2 weeks I'll do fried rice and see if Uncle Roger decides to roast me on my fried rice. Hopefully he doesn't. I think I would do a pretty good job with it, but who knows? He's already roasted Jamie Oliver, and I don't remember the other chef's name, but he roasted her as well. She was the first one that he kind of went after, and pretty funny. If you haven't looked at it, look up Uncle Roger fried rice on YouTube. Pretty great channel. 100% Blue Baron. Yeah, I do DCS stuff. I do real world flying. I just like making content. And I like kind of showing people that, doing a lot of these things that a lot of people in my area anyway think that cooking is like magical, and I'm just trying to show that it's not. It's actually pretty simple. Usually it's a lot of waiting and talking. So if you have guests over, in this case, you guys are my guests, it's fun to just kind of have something going while you're chatting with people. But if you really want to kind of raise the bar and do something special, it still isn't really that much more difficult. It just takes a couple more steps. So just showing that off is kind of what I'm trying to do with at least this show. And I'm trying to get into the swing of doing like one aviation related thing a week at least. and trying to ramp that up. That's been really difficult with the pandemic going on, just because our flight club wants people to be a little bit cautious with how they use the planes. So it usually takes a little bit more preparation to actually get out there and do anything. So kind of an interesting dynamic right now. Let's check this last time. Not quite, but we'll just go with it. All right, so we're putting the cheese down. This side is browned. It's not quite as browned as the other side. Let me see if I can shade that a little bit. You can kind of see that it's browned. But I'm gonna go ahead and put cheese on this side as well. And now I can actually see that my cheese inside of the bread is melted. So what I can do is turn up the heat on the actual pan so that I can really get the outside crust cheese nice and crispy. You can do the same thing if you just want to get your bread toasted once the cheese on the inside of the sandwich is melted. You can turn up the heat on the pan and just get that final browning on the outside. Again, there's no Maillard reaction, which is what happens when you put like a piece of meat on a hot pan. You want a super hot pan because it caramelizes the outside. Bread doesn't really do that. It just toasts and then burns. So you can start low, which is what we did, and then just kind of gradually raise the heat once the inside of the sandwich is doing what you want it to do, in this case, melting. You can see that the outside, maybe you can see, the fat here on the outside of the pancetta or the prosciutto is starting to get translucent and render out. Yeah, it's pretty much the same here. There's a lot of people here who aren't wearing masks, which I think is stupid. There's also a lot of people here who are just not taking it seriously at all. And then there's a lot of people, like one agent, so we have a real estate office in Danville, and one of the agents there, 3 of her family members have died from coronavirus. So yeah, it's kind of a mixed bag, and it's very terrible for her. But there's still some people in that office who aren't taking it seriously, and I don't understand it. So I've got 3 different kinds of cheese, Mom. I've got Fontina, I've got cheddar, I've got pepper jack because I like a little bit of a bite, and I've got some Gruyere, so just like the white Swiss Gruyere cheese because it's meltier than Swiss cheese, like regular Swiss cheese. And then I've got a couple of pieces of prosciutto in there as well. So it's kind of like a cheese and ham sandwich. So I'm going to go ahead and take a look at the side and see what the cheese looks like. Nice and crusty, so I'm going to go ahead and flip it. You'll notice that none of the cheese is falling off of the bread. It's all stuck because it's kind of melted in, and that's exactly what you want. Ooh, a little warm. And the cheese inside the sandwich has melted down, so that's perfect. All right, so while this just kind of melts on that side, I'm going to go grab a small plate for presentation. And remember, the better something looks, the better something will taste. It is a scientifically proven fact. And by scientifically proven fact, I mean I believe it, so it's scientifically proven. Yikes, that was loud. I'm gonna let that sit for another couple of seconds, and then we're done on this side. And while we're waiting, I'm gonna go ahead and take my pickle, cut it kind of diagonally like this. And then what I can do is actually put that on the plate, something like that. Give it a little bit of an artistic flair. Not too much you can do with a grilled cheese sandwich, but, you know, gotta at least give it an attempt. And then, I don't know if you guys can hear the crispy on the cheese there, but the cheese is nice and toasty. I don't know if you guys can tell on the cheese here, but the cheese in the middle there is all melted and yummy. Flip it. That looks good. So we're good on both sides with our cheese. I'm going to pick which side looks better. I think the other side looks better. Yep. And so that's what I'm going to use on the side up. Put that on the plate. Turn off the heat. Last week we did a longer form cook-along. And so this week we're just doing a little bit of a shorter episode. That way it kind of gives me a little bit of my time back for the week. I'm going to give this a second to cool down just a bit. And that'll let the cheese, even though it's melty, kind of come back together so that when I'm cutting it, it's not sliding all over the place and spreading cheese everywhere. And then the same thing is with the pickle. I'm going to cut it kind of at a diagonal angle. And yeah, this looks perfect. Look at that. The cheese is melting all over. Our pancetta is melted to the cheese in the middle. So you don't have to worry about the side with the pancetta on it sliding off. And let's see, do something like this. I want to make this kind of an extreme angle. Press very lightly and hold both sides. And there we go. Cut right through the sandwich. Perfect. Nice melty grilled cheese sandwich. Do something like that for presentation. Maybe turn it sideways like that. And there we go. Grilled cheese sandwich is done. I hope you guys give this a try. Fantastic way to make a really tasty, kind of homey and very, what's the word I'm looking for? Comfort food style meal. Now for an extra flair, if you wanted to, you can actually turn this back up and toast the cut edge. Oops. Something like that. This is just honestly me being fancy. There's no real reason to do this other than to make it look that much better, but totally up to you. And all of my dish towels are currently in the washing machine, so I have to use a paper towel, but I'm just going to use it over and over. Cool, guys. Yeah, totally extreme angle of attack. That's 100% what that was. We'll just let those kind of toast in there. And all these little cheese croutons, I mean, these are the chef's little gold nuggets that you get to eat for cooking this. And be a little careful. I'm grabbing them straight out of the pan, but they are hot, so don't burn yourself. There we go. Got a little bit of color on there. And then a little bit of color on there. And grilled cheese sandwich, done. Awesome, guys. Hopefully you give this a try. Another quick cook along live. We're doing this for about 20-ish minutes or so, but that just shows how easy this is. By all means, give it a shot. Try it on a rainy day, rainy weekend, and enjoy. If you guys want to see more, if you guys want to see some of the other food that I've cooked, follow me on YouTube. The address is youtube.com/Syrix, P-S-Y-R-I-X-X. I have the same username for my Instagram account, Facebook account. You can find me anywhere on the internet, so go and look me up. Pleasure was mine. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you guys next week for Chicken Cordon Bleu. Bye.